The key turned in the lock like it had 1,000 times before. But when I pushed open the front door that Tuesday afternoon, stepping into what should have been the familiar chaos of home, I was met with something I'd never experienced before. Absolute silence. Not the comfortable quiet of an empty house. This was different. Hollow. Wrong. My backpack hit the floor with a thud that echoed through rooms that suddenly felt too big, too empty. The living room furniture was gone. The family photos that had lined the hallway vanished. Even the refrigerator magnets, those tiny anchors of daily life, had disappeared. I called out, my 17-year-old voice cracking in a way it hadn't for months. Mom? Dad? Michael? Nothing. My feet carried me toward the kitchen, each step amplifying the wrongness of it all. That's where I found it. A single piece of notebook paper on the counter, folded once. My name scrawled across the front in my mother's familiar handwriting. Inside, just 4 words that would reshape everything I thought I knew about love, family, and survival. You'll figure it out. I read it again and again, as if staring at those words long enough might make them rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Something that explained why my entire family, my parents, my younger brother Michael, had packed up their lives and disappeared without so much as a goodbye. The paper trembled in my hands, not from fear, not yet, from confusion so profound it felt physical, like my brain was trying to process a language I'd never learned. I wandered through our empty house. Their empty house, I realized with a jolt, searching for clues I'd somehow missed. In my parents' bedroom, the closet doors hung open like mouths mid-scream, revealing nothing but dust and wire hangers. Michael's room, once a disaster zone of video games and dirty clothes, was spotless, abandoned. It wasn't until I tried to call my dad's cell phone and heard the automated message, "This number is no longer in service," that the reality began to sink in. They hadn't just left. They had planned this, changed their numbers, cut every tie. What had I done wrong? The question consumed me as I sat alone in that empty house, replaying every interaction from the past few months. Every eye roll when I tried to help with dinner. Every time I'd offered to tutor Michael through his failing grades, only to have him slam his door in my face, calling me a know-it-all. Every paycheck I'd handed over to Dad to help with bills, only to be lectured about being useless the next day. I'd always been useful to them, I realized. Never loved, but always useful. The sound of footsteps on the front porch made my heart leap. They'd come back. This was all some horrible misunderstanding, some test I'd somehow passed just by waiting. But it was Mrs. Chen, our landlord, her weathered face creased with concern and something that looked like pity. "Emma, honey," she said, her voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. "I'm so sorry. Your parents, they terminated the lease early. You have until next Tuesday to move out." Next Tuesday, 6 days. "Where did they go?" The words scraped out of my throat. Mrs. Chen's expression softened further. "They didn't say, just that they were moving out of state for a fresh start." She paused, studying my face. "They said you were staying with friends until you graduated." Another lie to add to whatever story they'd constructed to justify abandoning their 17-year-old daughter. The first night alone in that empty house, I slept on the floor of my bedroom, wrapped in the one blanket they'd left behind, probably by accident. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, trying to understand how the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had simply erased me from their lives. By day 3, I'd exhausted my options. The friend whose couch I'd crashed on for 2 nights couldn't hide me from her parents any longer. The guidance counselor at school had made noises about calling social services, which terrified me more than being alone. Foster care felt like admitting defeat, like confirming what my family had apparently already decided, that I was unwanted. So I did what I'd learned to do my entire life. I figured it out. With the last of my savings, money I'd been squirreling away for college, I rented the smallest storage unit I could find, 10 by 10 feet of concrete and metal that became my bedroom, my sanctuary, my secret shame. I'd sneak in after dark, unroll the sleeping bag I'd bought at a thrift store, and try to ignore the cold that seeped through the walls. Mornings meant sneaking into the YMCA before they got busy, using their showers, pretending I was just another early morning gym enthusiast. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner came from a jar of peanut butter and a plastic spoon, the most economical calories I could find. The public library became my office, where I'd apply for jobs on their free computers, crafting cover letters that painted me as an eager young adult ready for the workforce, not a homeless teenager trying to survive. I practiced my smile in the bathroom mirror, perfecting the expression that said, everything's fine, even when everything was falling apart. The night shift at Murphy's Diner found me 3 weeks into my new life. Grace, the manager, was a woman who'd clearly seen her share of hard luck stories. She didn't ask too many questions when I listed my address as transitional housing. She paid me cash under the table until I could get proper identification. A lifeline I'll never forget. "You look dead on your feet, kid," she said one night around 3 a.m., catching me swaying as I wiped down tables. "Break room's got a couch. Grab 20 minutes." I collapsed onto that stained, sagging couch and slept deeper than I had since finding that note. When I woke up, Grace was covering my tables, handling the late-night regulars with the same brisk efficiency she showed everyone. "Thanks," I mumbled, embarrassed. She just shrugged. "We all need help sometimes. Trick is knowing when to take it." Those words became my mantra. Take help when it's offered. Show up early. Ask questions. Work harder than anyone expects. The turning point came 6 months later when one of the diner's regulars, a businessman who always ordered the same coffee and eggs over easy, mentioned he needed someone to help organize his office files. "It's mind-numbing work," he warned, "but it pays 3 times what you make here." I said yes before he finished the sentence. That filing job led to data entry. Data entry led to administrative work. Administrative work led to learning spreadsheets, databases, project management. I absorbed everything like a sponge, staying late to master new software, volunteering for the projects no one else wanted. By 22, I was freelancing full-time, bouncing between small businesses that needed someone reliable to handle their paperwork, their scheduling, their digital chaos. By 25, I'd launched my own consulting firm. Just me, a folding table from Walmart, and a laptop I'd finally saved enough to buy new. The business grew because I understood something my competitors didn't. I knew what it felt like to have everything stripped away, to start from absolute zero. So when small business owners called me, panicked about their failing systems, their overwhelming growth, their fear of losing everything they'd built, I didn't just fix their problems. I understood their desperation. By 27, I had 5 contractors working for me. By 29, I owned my own office space and had clients that used to exist only in my daydreams. And on a Tuesday morning that felt both momentous and ordinary, I checked my banking app and saw 7 figures staring back at me. I cried. Right there in my office, surrounded by the empire I'd built from nothing, I sobbed like that scared 17-year-old girl sleeping in a storage unit. "You'll figure it out," the note had said. And I had. Just not in any way they could have imagined. 12 years of silence followed that note. 12 years of building a life while wondering if they ever thought about me. 12 years of therapy, of learning to trust, of slowly understanding that their abandonment said everything about them and nothing about my worth. Then came the podcast. The interview was supposed to be about entrepreneurship, about building a business from scratch. But when the host asked about my motivation, about what drove me to work so relentlessly, the truth spilled out. The story of the note, of the storage unit, of figuring it out alone. Family estrangement, I said into the microphone, isn't just about the people who leave. It's about learning to become the person you needed when you were most vulnerable. The episode went viral, 1 million views in 4 days. My inbox flooded with messages from strangers who'd lived their own versions of abandonment, who'd felt that same bone-deep confusion of being left behind by the people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. And then buried among the hundreds of supportive emails, I found one that made my blood run cold. Subject: "You're still our daughter." From Patricia Winters, my mother. No apology, no acknowledgement of the devastation they'd caused. Just a clinical paragraph about hearing my side and wondering if maybe we could talk. Another email followed within hours. "We miss you. Can we fix this?" Michael, I stared at those words until they blurred. We miss you. As if I'd been the one who left. As if 12 years of silence had been my choice. My therapist, Melissa, had prepared me for this possibility. Success has a way of bringing people out of the woodwork, she'd warned. You'll need to decide what contact, if any, you want on your terms. I took 10 days to decide. 10 days of thinking about that scared teenager sleeping in a storage unit. 10 days of remembering every birthday they'd missed, every achievement they'd never celebrated, every crisis I'd navigated alone. Finally, I wrote back to Michael. Just one question. It's been 12 years. What changed? His response came within an hour, full of explanations about being young when they left, about always wondering about me, about seeing my success and feeling proud. Proud. The word tasted bitter. When I pressed him for the real reason, the truth finally emerged. Their business had failed. His wife needed surgery. Medical bills were mounting. My public success had reminded them I existed and that I might be useful again. Some patterns never change. The confrontation that followed, the meetings, the lawyers, the restraining orders, the threats, revealed the depth of their desperation and manipulation. But it also revealed something else. My brother Michael, trapped in their web just as I had been, finally ready to break free. The family I rebuilt wasn't the one I'd lost. It was better, built on choice rather than obligation, on truth rather than manipulation, on love that didn't come with conditions or expiration dates. Last week, I stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd found that devastating note 12 years ago, metaphorically speaking, watching my chosen family fill my apartment with laughter. Michael's daughter Lily, now 4, spinning in circles in a princess dress. His wife Jenny taking pictures of every moment. Friends stopping by with birthday presents and genuine smiles. So much noise. So much joy. I thought about that note again. You'll figure it out. And I had figured it out. Not survival. That was just the beginning. I'd figured out what family really means. What love should look like. What I deserved all along. I'm not the same person who found that note. That girl was broken, but not defeated. Abandoned, but not worthless. Left behind, but not forgotten. At least not by the person who mattered most. Herself. The note that was meant to be an ending became a beginning. The family that was supposed to be forever became a cautionary tale. And the girl who was supposed to figure it out alone learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the family you choose loves you better than the one you were born into. Sometimes figuring it out means letting go of what was and building something better from scratch. Sometimes the cruelest gift becomes the greatest freedom. Sometimes you don't just survive abandonment, you transform it into the foundation for a life more authentic and joyful than anything you could have imagined. The note said I'd figure it out. What it didn't say was how strong I'd become in the process. That's all for today's story. Hope you enjoyed the ride. If you did, give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to help me reach my first 1,000 subscribers. It really means a lot. And hey, if you're still craving more drama, mystery, or chaos, check out the next story right here on the screen. See you in the next one.